Hello, friends. This is John Klein III of episode 208 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, your premier Kitty Pryde, Lockheed, and Magic podcast. And today we are going to review Age of Revelation titles, Omega Kids 3, Book of Revelation 3, The Last Wolverine 3, Radioactive Spider-Man 3, and Rogue Storm 3, and then quickly Battleworld 4. So let's get into it. So we have Omega Kids 3. This might surprise people that Omega Kids 3 is the leading comic of the episode, but how could it not be? This has been such a great miniseries. Not just surprisingly good, but good. Even great. Tony Flex wrote such a great miniseries of Andres Glinlet as the artist, for Stenifatis Shujo, the colorist, and VC's Travis Lantham as the letterer. Bailey Quinn is clearly my favorite of the Mega Kids. She is so Ilyana Rasputina coded that is built to win my heart. She is a tinge bit evil, though, as she has a psychic relay that is shutting down everyone's brains that has a negative thought about Revelation, which isn't great. She's clearly 10 or so, so she should be have been born any minute in the present, right? We catch up with Quentin Quire, who's living through a simulation, so he isn't aware of the parasoldiers with guns to his head. Rachel Summers returns and knocks them all out and flies away with Quire. I love so much how proud Quire is of his own teaching abilities, but even more so his students. It's very impressive how deep into the simulation they got him into, and they were really listening to him the entire time. Rachel thinks he's dumb to be this proud, but I'm right there with him. Rachel confirms that all the cuckoos are alive in Omegaville, so that must mean Mindy's safe, right? Right? Rachel goes to get some help, and Quire does the same, as if he's going to confront the Omega kids. He needs some serious backup. Not only does he have Rachel and Phoebe, but he also brought the X-Men, and not the future Cyclops X-Men, like a dream team of X-Men. There's Nightcrawler, Danny Moonstar, Cyclops, Jubilee, Rogue, Gambit, even Deadpool. Logan, Wolverine, C- Cannon, Psylocke, Storm, Cannonball, and yes, Kitty Pryde and Lockheed with magic, which by my count is only the 58th panel the three of them have been in all together. I love this so much. Lockheed is flying with Kitty holding his paws, his feet. Paws, right? I immediately bought the Salvador La Roca new X-Men 114 homage cover. I've been waiting for the finale to come out to write complaint that Lockheed doesn't exist X years in the future, but here we are. The art team really did a great job drawing him here. We only get an extra panel of Logan throwing one of the kids aside and they all disappear. Poor Quentin has to shut all their brains off, as of course they can't get away with this. But what a wild ride this comic and miniseries has been. And then we have Book of Revelation 3. I would say this is one of the key issues of the event. We finally learned the motivation and goals of Doug Ramsey Revelation. We learn Elbecca, actually Verta the Subtle, was handpicked by Apocalypse for this plan. Fabian Cortez got a funeral, and people respect him in death as much as they did in life, which wasn't much. Verta needs seeds at Krakoan Gate. I do love seeing Revelation tinkering with a computer. He's still connected to his old life. He discusses how Apocalypse's survivor of the strongest philosophy doesn't really work. Doug has a master plan that had to drape it all in this religious iconography to sell it to the masses. He has sacrificed everything for this mission. He used his best friend Warlock to spread the X virus, and he allowed his wife Bay, the Blood Moon, to be killed. But he also needed her to relay the mission to Apocalypse. I do like seeing that Doug has really stepped up his game plan. He needed Apocalypse to attack him, so he set that in motion. He left a giant door open so Apocalypse would send a spy. He wasn't sure if Verda was that, but clearly she is. He mentions Kitty Pryde right when Verda stabs him. If this is the only reference we get of Kitty and she doesn't appear in finale, then this is the last Kitty content we get until maybe April. As of the recording, all the solicitations for March has come out except for Marvel, so we'll be checking that over the weekend. But hopefully by Monday it's up, and then you can expect the my thoughts on the solicitations on Tuesday on the home of Shadow and Flame of Magic.com. Doug's big plan is to turn Earth into a version of Earth Ego, the living planet, but with Doug's face as the planet. The strongest to survive, and the weak needs to be strong, so everyone survives. Even Verda's plan to seed a gate is part of Doug's plan, so her last act of defiance is just yet another step for him. Verda dies as Apocalypse and Xavier arrive on Earth, setting up for finale. So not a bad mini-series. Um, it tells the story of Albeca or Verda, so it at least feels like a proper full story. And probably will get recapped quickly in finale. The Last Wolverine 3, this final issue makes me worried about finale. Leonard's super worried about Heather killing Logan, but I never think of her as someone who can accomplish anything, so I have my doubts. Revelation clearly learned of this plan and sent Logan deaf to stop him. Kurt's heart can't keep all with all this teleportation. Heather's in a very surprising move actually slices off Logan's left arm, which immediately reminds me of Weapon X from Age of Apocalypse, but his bicep instead of his hand. Also, I think about Colossus during Age of X-Men. That's pretty much the exact same cut. This does wake up Logan, so mission accomplished. He was wearing a mask this entire time, and we haven't been looking at his adamantium skull like we thought. Kurt teleports Leonard and Logan away as Heather dies fighting off Revelation Seraphim. Kurt's heart stops as he's just doing too much and dies, which makes me immediately start putting stakes onto this comic that is better to be all worth it. Logan kills Logan to escape to Canada and enjoy a drink on him. Leonard's going to go full Wendigo mode and sacrifice himself. Issue's final page is Logan swearing vengeance and it's going to go back to Revelation, which makes me immediately think that Revelation's going to control Logan and turn him into death again. I suppose Doug's down quite a few choir stairs, so maybe he won't be able to stop Logan, or maybe Logan never even gets that close to Doug. But now I'm worried about Age of Revelation finale, and this entire mini that I enjoyed might now have been a waste of time. If Logan turns, then the readability of this mini will be pretty low. But are any of these minis going to be worth reading again? Are these the thoughts Marvel wants us to have at the end of this issue? I am also worried Chip Zdarsky's Armageddon is going to do something wonky to the Marvel that I'm not going to enjoy, and we're going to get a reboot. I can't imagine they're actually going to do it, but I just want my ex comics to have to deal with this and all of this setup to yet another Marvel Secret Wars event in time for the movie. I don't know. I'm having a bit of an anxiety moment when I think of Marvel in 2026. We know the first arcs of Shadow Tomorrow end right when Armageddon starts. And then who knows what that event ties in are going to be like. I sure don't, hence my hesitation of all this. I spiral a bit when I think of the future, but also my DCBS pre-orders have been pretty low, so I'm saving money, probably spend those savings on back issues. Radioactive Spider-Man 3. This comic had the misfortune of being read after the last Wolverine 3, so I may have been in a mood, but with time passing, I feel like I still feel the same way. This is the story Joe Kelly pitched. We get Miles shouting at Peter that Aunt May's gone and she's just a giant germ at this point. We get a flashback of Dr. Octopus telling Peter this 2 years into the event. She was locked away and was very unfortunate that she is out now. Dr. Cecilia Reyes is completely wasted in this miniseries. She could have been swapped out with any other character, with Peter just doing the heavy lift on the science of it all. One redeeming element of this would be if she showed up in the current run of Spider Comics. I would like that. But we weren't given a cool final Spider-Man story versus a mutated Sinister Six. We got Aunt May's final story, a character who was given the ultimate final story in Amazing Spider-Man 400 with issue 1000 coming out in 2026 for perspective. Has much been done with her since killing off baby May for a shocking twist of Aunt May being alive? She would have lost out on a spectacular supporting character in JMS's amazing run, but then she's the reason for one more day in that same run, so I would have paid the price of her staying dead to ensure we didn't get this more stories like this. So Joe Kelly was asked to write a miniseries to tie in with Age of Revelation. He pitched a final Aunt May story. It was nice that Peter had a narration box stating he views May as his mother, but I just feel like we all recognize her as his mother, so it makes sense that he goes to the extremes for her, but this just reminds me why I don't read Spider-Man comics, and I can't imagine that was the goal of this miniseries. But at least we got to see Dr. Cecilia Reyes during the event, which was nice. Rogue Storm 3. I guess this was just a rough week of comics. I didn't connect with this series at all. I'm not sure why we even had to do Rogue Green and Rogue Red. I thought this was just set 7 years into the future as opposed to X years, so this would have just been a story in Rogue's future past. And then by the time Unbreakable happens, she still fights a Galactus and gets all stoned up. It's just an odd choice. So this miniseries essentially explained why Storm won't be involved in the finale. She died fighting the gods, which I admit I didn't connect with the gods arc of Storm's last ongoing. And I'm really looking forward to a more Earth-focused Storm in this upcoming series. Except for the whole Storm's attending a funeral, and there's been no Kitty Pryde cast information. So whose funeral is it? So Mortar Storm versus Gods just isn't a story I want even more of. I like how Rogue Storm got a nice, or Rogue Red got a nice ending. That's good for her. Now that Rogue Green is back, those two are going to deal with that or just combine into one. Will Red even be in finale? And then we got Battleworld 4. Everyone's fighting Korvac besides Bucky and Spider-Man. Storm is seen in the fight until Korvac forces her to relive the deaths of her parents, so I don't love that. But that's all the Storm we get in the issue, so it's like you don't make a reference to the Days of Future Past that she's in. Like she's clearly an elderly Storm. You can make a reference to that instead of going back to like it could have been any Storm picked. What I do love is Bucky and Spider-Man recruit some heroes, including Britannicus Rex of Earth 99476. That's right, Dinosaur Captain Britain from Excalibur Volume 151. They show up way too late to support anyone, but at least issue 5 should be fun. Wasp makes a deal with Korvax to rebuild the world he wants. It revives everyone who died. And he changes Hank Pym into her Hank Pym, so she must have a plan with a twist, right? But also the stakes feel very low for this series, so if he wins, is that a good thing or a bad thing? So in the next week's comics, we have Age of Revelation titles, Expatriate X-Men 3 on Deadpool 3, which should guest star the Expatriate X-Men, X-Avengers 3, Cloak or Dagger 3, the Marvel Winter Break Special 1, and the Will of Doom. So I think I'm pre-ordered all of those except for X-Avengers and Cloak or Dagger. So we should see. So my current Age of Revelation rankings are Expatriate X-Men 2, Unbreakable X-Men, Book of Revelation, Omega Kids 3, it made it to the top tier. Amazing X-Men, Binary. Then the mid-tier ones, Undeadpool, X-Avengers, Overture, Laura Kinney, Sabretooth, Sinister Six, Cloak or Dagger, and the last Wolverine 3, because I'm so worried about it not mattering after finale that it just dropped even lower. And then we got our bottom tier, Long Shots 3, Radioactive Spider-Man. Like just the first issue had promise and a premise. And what we got just it doesn't matter. You don't have to read Radioactive Spider-Man at all. Iron and Frost 3, Age of Revelation 0, Rogue Storm 3, World Revelation, Age of Revelation Infinity 4. And then next week, well, we have the next week comics, and then the lead will be our Extreme X-Men Volume 1, Issue 43. Because it's our last of our 43 comics before we start our 44 ones, as I'll be turning 44 next year, which doesn't feel much different than 43, but I don't know. We have a month. And so, and the next issue episode will be the last episode of the year before we go into 2026. So that should be fun. Probably should create some type of top 10 list of such, but um mental note for me to do in the future. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching or listening for our podcasters. And I will talk at you next time. All right, everyone, goodbye. Oh, and you can follow me on socials at Jacko SII, including TikTok and YouTube, Blue Sky, Twitter, and you follow the podcast at SNFWM, and spelt out on Instagram. We will definitely be posting images of Extreme X-Men on the socials, on Blue Sky and Instagram. And if you want a cool subreddit to visit, please check out Locky the Dragon, all one word. And I will talk to you next time. All right, everyone. Bye.